Alright, everyone, this is going to be my recap, an in-depth discussion about Scream 4, the whole franchise, and all the Ghostface villains that have come in the franchise. I'm going to talk about that. So this is going to be full of spoilers, and if you haven't seen my review, check that out. Or if you haven't seen Scream 4 or the other movies, watch those before you even watch this. So we start off, let's see here, winter 2011. I would think, I'd be like, who the fuck is gonna be Ghostface? That's all I think about all the time. And we were led to, I remember checking IMDb and someone was like, oh, I think Jill's gonna be Ghostface. I was like, that can't even be possible. I didn't think they'd do that because of like how Scream 3 ended with how it was her brother. And also because they make you believe that she's gonna be like the next Sydney and that they were gonna do the next two movies of her getting attacked like she's the victim. So when you accept the movie for what it is and accept the twist, as it's happening, it's kind of hard to buy into. But as you reflect on the movie, I really like it as a whole. It had a great feeling. The franchise doesn't capture that feeling of like the 90s like it did in the first three, but that's a good thing. I think it made it more modern, and I like the feel of it. And it went at a good pace, and it had a dark tone throughout. And then so, all through the winter, I was like, who the fuck is Ghostface? And everyone had their Ghostface rankings, and of course, Rory Culkin was went everyone's top two because it's always like one of the clean-cut bad boys that they hire as an actor first is always going to be Ghostface. And then I figured that they'd probably like what I also wanted him to do is like make one of the killers get away this time. That would have been sweet if like Jill got away and like see what they could have done with the franchise like that, and it would have been kind of weird. But so they leave Nev Campbell and the old cast from the 90s with Courtney Cox and Dewey alive. And you're like, okay. And then like, first off, let's go through the whole cast. And I was like, as they were hiring them through the summer, and I was like, Hayden Panettiere, you knew she was just the token like best friend who had no chance of being Ghostface. Anthony Anderson, they just hired him in as like the token black guy for comic relief. Then Adam Brody, like, you're like, okay, he's just another freaking actor to roll in as a cop. So they could bounce dialogue with him and Anthony Anderson. Then they had Jill's mom. Her name's Mary McConnell, I guess. Marley Shelton. They use her as like a kind of like a love triangle thing with Dewey and Gale. It's kind of gay, and they also make you believe that like the ending might tie into the first one or something with her. They just use her that way. And then we had Sydney's assistant. I also didn't even really talk about that the first time. Her death was just random in the parking lot. It was alright. I don't know. They could have done something tight with that kill. Like they said they were going to do tighter kills. But like, then I also kind of figured that they might do kind of like a remake of like the first one with like Trevor, her boyfriend, where they like make you think that he's the killer, and you know that they're just faking you, but then they go back and make you think he's innocent, then make you think he's the killer. But Jill ends up setting her up. Let's talk about the film crew. First off, you don't even kind of see Jill coming as the killer. You don't even see her psychotic side or her love for horror films, really. Other than that, she's associated with Charlie and Robbie and Kirby, who all grew up during the horror boom era of the remakes with Texas Chainsaw Massacre and all the other remakes that were made by Platinum Dunes. Not to mention all the other original horrors like The Ring and Cabin Fever. And so that's why the ending was kind of hard to believe in too, but I guess. And they also don't even show her at the film meeting where they explain the rules. I guess she was like at the freaking barn setting up the video cams or something, and like get a tap for like the keg or something. And you're like, okay. So she wasn't in that scene. So then they hired a bunch of freaking bitches to get sliced up, like Brittany Robertson and Sheena Grimes and Lucy Hale and Amy Teagarden, Kristen Bell, Anna Paquin. And then they make Jill go psychotic at the end, and we find out that she just wanted all the attention for herself, and she was using Charlie to help her get revenge on her boyfriend and kill all her friends. And then she ended up betraying Charlie, stabbing him in the heart at the end. So after you buy into, I don't know, like Wes Craven and the Weinsteins all sat in a meeting with Williamson. They're like, what's the most shocking thing we could do? Okay, make a young Hollywood hot actress the freaking Ghostface. It ended up being tight, I guess, once you reflect on it. Saw it twice in theaters. Yeah, so they put balls into her character. Like, what the so they had the balls to do that, the Weinsteins did. And then Emma Roberts put the balls into the character. Charlie, what's his name? Rory Culkin, Macaulay Culkin's brother. I don't know, he was alright as Ghostface. It wasn't amazing. It wasn't that good of a performance, like I said. He sounded like he was having his vinegar strokes when he was talking the whole time. What else do I want to talk about? So, let's see what Sydney goes through, and I'm going to go through my overall Ghostface rankings here in the last 5 minutes. We got the first one, so it all started off with Sydney's mom, Maureen Prescott, was the town slut. And so she was sleeping with Billy's mom and sleeping with Cotton Weary, who was like a talk radio show host or whatever. And so Billy finds out about his mom sleeping with her, so he gets close to Sydney, and he's psychotic and he's obsessed with horror films, and he gets his best friend Stu into it. And that ending's classic, of course. And then a year later in Scream 2, Sydney, like, after going through that trauma, she goes to college in Ohio or whatever. And we have Mickey and Billy's mom as the new killers, and Billy's mom ends up betraying Mickey. So on my Ghostface rankings, alright, let me see here. Let me go through the whole movies, then I'll go through my... Billy's mom ends up betraying Mickey, the film student at Sydney's college. And the third one, Sydney's like, lives out in the country or whatever, and like, she's like one of those hotline, like, support group talkers. And what they end up doing is writing a script that ties into the first one, where they say her brother, she's like played by Scott Foley, like an actor who hasn't even got much work since that role. But I thought his portrayal of Ghostface was pretty tight. But he ends up saying that he looked up Maureen Prescott and she freaking didn't want anything to do with him, so he went crazy and he started following her, and he found out she was banging everyone, so he told Billy about it, which was Sydney's boyfriend at the time. And it was just a chemical reaction of a explosion of them meeting, and they just all had the idea of to create their own horror movie, because I guess Roman Bridger, her brother, is from Hollywood and was a director, and that's what ties it in with the horror theme of why they went with the theme of that, mixed with Billy's love for horror movies. So it was just a great match, I guess. So Sydney ends up killing him, of course. Then we skip ahead 10 years later, and we got Jill, Sydney's cousin, which is off of her mother's sister. He's so jealous with her. I guess she was only 2 when the murders happened or something in the movie, because she's supposed to be a high school senior or something. And you're like, okay, so let's go over my Ghostface rankings overall. Definitely number 1 of all time will have to be Billy, of course, played by Skeet Ulrich. That was just an awesome character. Totally psychotic. That movie's just a classic when you watch it for the first time. And then definitely I'd have to go with Mickey as second, played by Timothy Oliphant. A great actor. He's a psychotic film student. They don't really go into his character that much, because Scream style, they kind of like to hide it. But whatchamacallit, he met Billy's mom on the internet in the late 90s. It's hilarious. And she was like, oh, he's one of the only active serial killers in America, and that's pretty rare, because there's only 97 on average. It's hilarious. So she ends up shooting him, which is played by like the bitch who's like Roseanne's sister or something, which is whack. So she'd probably have to be the last, because she's not even hot. She'd have to be last on my ranking of Ghostface, of who portrayed Ghostface. Third, Emma Roberts, of course, because she's freaking smoking hot, and you just can't even like stop watching when you're watching the ending. Then probably Scott Foley. That's an underrated ending. A lot of people just like to automatically be like, oh, the third one sucked. But the ending's pretty tight, though, actually, if you go back and watch it. And then I'd have to say Rory Culkin, of course, ahead of Laurie Metcalf. So, no, then Matthew Lillard as Stu, Billy's friend. He was kind of peer pressured into it, as he says. Then Rory Culkin. Then Laurie Metcalf. And of course, you can't forget the infamous Roger L. Jackson. And that's all the time on this. Check out my Scream 4 reviews and my other horror reviews and in-depth horror discussions, JBM 2005.